He built empires out of boardrooms and numbers. He was known for turning failing companies into global successes. But nothing in his high-profile life prepared him for the moment his twin children were born, unable to move their arms or legs. In the delivery room, his world went quiet. Machines hummed. Doctors whispered. And the man used to controlling everything suddenly stood powerless. That is where this story begins. For years, the public saw him as a symbol of success. His name appeared on magazine covers. His investments stretched across industries like real estate, technology, and global retail. He married later in life, after years of prioritizing work over everything else. When he and his wife announced they were expecting twins, it became a quiet turning point in his life. Friends said he seemed happier and more grounded. He made space in his schedule for doctor appointments and nursery plans. For the first time, he talked about stepping back from business after the birth. Delivery day was marked on calendars. The plan was private, controlled, and secure. But no plan accounted for what actually happened. The twins were delivered at a private hospital staffed by some of the best specialists in the country. Within minutes, something was wrong. Both infants had no movement in their legs and almost none in their arms. Their breathing was weak and shallow. Nurses exchanged uncertain glances. The obstetrician ordered immediate scans. Neonatal specialists were paged. He stood there, unable to process the words, neurological impairment. His wife cried quietly as staff moved the babies into neonatal intensive care. They were hooked to monitors and enclosed in warming beds. The family was told the twins might face lifelong paralysis. The room blurred around him. He had the resources to fix almost anything, but he could not negotiate with biology. Over the next several days, the couple met with doctors trained in pediatrics and neurology. Each used terms like limited prognosis, unknown mobility potential, and best-case therapy options. The twins would likely need long-term care, assistive devices, and specialized physical therapy. The billionaire tried to stay composed. He asked for every expert available. Money could buy equipment, teams, and access, but it could not guarantee hope. Then came the woman who would change the course of their lives. She was a neonatal physical therapist with experience working with infants who had congenital mobility conditions. She had trained at a leading medical institute and had spent years in pediatric rehabilitation. She spoke softly but clearly and did not sugarcoat the situation. She explained that early physical intervention could make a difference, even in severe cases. She asked for consent to begin a specialized regimen within days of birth. At first, he barely looked at her. He was focused on reports and medical charts. His wife listened carefully, asking questions. The therapist described gentle neuromuscular stimulation, positioning techniques, and sensory response methods. She said progress might come slowly and might not come at all. But without intervention, nothing would change. Therapy began as soon as the twins were stable. The therapist scheduled multiple short sessions each day. She rotated their limbs, lifted their tiny heads, and used soft, textured tools for stimulation. Nurses noted how calm she remained even when the infants showed no response. His wife sat through sessions, holding back tears. He visited irregularly at first, struggling with the fear of false hope. Weeks passed. The twins remained in intensive care, monitored closely by the medical team. Tests confirmed neurological abnormalities, but the cause was not fully understood. Specialists debated nerve development, possible oxygen issues, and rare genetic markers. The therapist ignored debates and focused on movement. She encouraged the parents to assist with simple repetitions. She showed them how to hold the babies in ways that could promote muscle activation. One night, he walked into the therapy room unexpectedly. He had returned from a business meeting held only because his lawyers insisted he attend. He intended to check in briefly and leave. Instead, he stopped at the doorway. The therapist was working with one of the twins, a tiny girl wrapped in a soft blanket. The infant's arm, which had hung limp since birth, moved, just slightly. It was not a reflex. It was small, intentional movement. The therapist kept her voice calm and encouraging. She repeated the position. The arm moved again. He did not speak. For a man seen as composed in every setting, his expression shifted into something unguarded. He watched as she documented the response and then gently worked with the second twin. That baby, a boy, made a faint attempt to lift his head when placed on a cushioned surface. The movement lasted only seconds, but it was movement neither parent had seen before. From that point forward, he attended every session. He asked the therapist to explain each step. She walked him through the science of neuroplasticity and motor pattern formation. She showed him charts of incremental progress. He learned how to support his children's heads and how to position their joints safely. The staff noticed his tone change. He no longer issued orders or demanded timelines. He listened. Over the next 3 months, the twins moved from intensive care to a specialized pediatric rehab unit. Their limbs gradually responded to stimulation. They began to grip small objects placed in their hands. Their breathing strengthened. The therapist coordinated with neurologists and pediatricians to adjust the plan as milestones emerged. Each movement was recorded and assessed. He funded equipment for the entire unit without announcing it publicly. Portable therapy tables, infant mobility trackers, and advanced monitoring devices appeared within weeks. But he credited the therapist, not himself, for the progress. His wife often said that this woman brought them back from despair by staying focused on what the children could do, rather than what they could not. The impact extended beyond the family. Other parents in the unit saw improvements in their own children after new resources were installed. The therapist trained additional staff on her methods and involved families in daily routines. Some of the infants had different conditions, but the principles remained the same: early movement, structured support, and measured expectations. By the twins' 6-month mark, they were able to kick lightly and lift their arms with assistance. Doctors revised their prognosis. They still faced challenges and would need long-term therapy, but paralysis was no longer considered absolute. Specialists used words like significant improvement and unexpected responsiveness. He arranged ongoing in-home therapy services once the twins were discharged. The therapist remained involved, overseeing a team that visited daily. She developed a long-term plan that balanced medical needs with developmental goals. The billionaire, once defined by profit margins, began declining meetings to stay home during sessions. The story reached media outlets months later through hospital staff who spoke anonymously about improvements in the pediatric unit. Reporters tried to connect the billionaire's name to the new equipment and staffing upgrades, but he refused interviews. When asked about the therapist, he only said she treated his children with commitment and skill when he could not see a way forward. Why this matters goes beyond one family. It highlights the gap between resources and human expertise. Money alone did not move the children's limbs. It created access, but access is only useful when paired with knowledge and dedication. The therapist saw potential that machines could not measure. She worked within realistic expectations, documenting every change without exaggeration. Her approach became a training model for similar cases. The parents of the twins often say the turning point was not the movement itself, but the moment he stopped assuming the outcome was fixed. Watching the therapist work dissolved the idea that his influence ended where medicine began. It reframed his role from rescuer to participant. In the years that followed, he quietly funded pediatric rehabilitation initiatives across several hospitals. Grants were established to support early intervention programs. The therapist became a director of one such program and continued working with high-risk infants. The twins, still young, progressed with each stage of therapy. They faced obstacles, but they were no longer defined by immobility. This story is not about wealth as a solution. It is about what happens when expertise, patience, and persistence intersect with opportunity. It underscores the fact that the first person to see movement was not the one with the most resources, but the one with the most focus on possibility rather than limitation. In the end, what stunned him was not a miracle. It was watching a professional do her work with precision and resolve at a moment when he had almost stopped believing anything could change. That single moment in a quiet therapy room reshaped how he approached his children's future, and it proved that progress does not always arrive with noise and certainty. Sometimes it begins with the smallest motion in a room no one expected to matter.